Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And I just had a little epiphany before I started this video about why climate change is such a great subject for me to be doing a channel about. There are so many aspects to climate change. It's so kind of all-encompassing. It's not just science, it's political, it's social, it's spiritual, philosophical. You can talk about the causes of climate change in a very scientific, focused way, about the releasing of carbon into the air and the heating and the warming that come with it. But you could also talk about climate change being a symptom or an effect of our political system, how it's run, or how human beings think of themselves in the world, speciesism, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a broad subject, and that's kind of why I like to talk about so many different things. It's not just the science. It's not, it's about, it's about the earth, and it's also about human beings in general and how they treat the earth and how they think of themselves. So don't know if I'm stating the same thing over and over again. But before I do that too much longer, just want to, go through some reasons why, just some evidence pertaining to the fact that we're in a really weird place. Maybe not that much weirder than any other place in history. I mean, human beings we've seemed to go down this road over and over again. But anyways, Joe Biden says poor kids are just as talented as white kids. Every time Joe Biden opens his mouth, he puts his foot in it, and he's just a terrible candidate for the Democrats to be running. And I don't actually believe that he is in the lead in the polls. I think that is completely manufactured. Kind of how, kind of like 2016, how we saw Hillary Clinton's numbers and popularity were completely manufactured by the media. And that was proven out in a few random, like CNN or some company put up a few random polls. There was a poll, basically a popularity poll, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, before the primaries were over. And it was like Bernie Sanders 82% and Hillary Clinton 12, something really small. When I saw that, I was like, that's the actual numbers. Those are the actual numbers. That's actually how people feel about Hillary Clinton. And then they did that again right before the general election with Trump, and it was the same thing. It was like Trump, whatever, in the 80s, and Hillary Clinton had in the teens. So all of her polling numbers were manufactured, all of her supposed popularity or whatever. I know she got 3 million more votes in the general election. That's fine. I'm just saying how the public sentiment was not in her favor. I don't know who they're polling to tell you that Joe Biden is in first place, but, he isn't. People really don't feel that great about him. And he just keeps saying stupid stuff. ICE arrests 680 people at a Mississippi food processing plant. This is kind of, Trump and the Trump administration, are already guilty of really terrible things, and they're, keeping kids in cages at the border, and they're deporting people who shouldn't be deported, and it's ridiculous. And it's kind of, this is, if you need any more evidence, I guess, that we're moving into a full-on fascist state, this is, just another piece of the puzzle. I also read an article about a man who was an Iraqi national, was deported. He'd never lived in Iraq. He was born in Greece and moved to the United States when he was a young child. and lived in this community in Detroit for years and was deported to Iraq. He was diabetic. He was deported to Iraq. He couldn't get access to insulin, and he died. But this has been happening. I have a friend who is Korean, and his dad immigrated from Korea, South Korea, and all of a sudden, as soon as Trump got into office, all of a sudden he had to hire a lawyer and figure out his citizenship status, which is bizarre to me, but pretty messed up because he grew up here in the United States. So, yeah, the Trump administration needs to go immediately, if not sooner, as my mom used to say. Moving on, I wanted to cover this Roger Hallam video. This is a really great talk by Roger Hallam, and you all should know who he is, leader, one of the founders of Extinction Rebellion. In this talk, if you all are, I highly suggest that you watch this. It's very inspiring. He does talk about global dimming. I think that he pretty much understands that we're in a really bad place, and so it's a little weird to me when people talk about Extinction Rebellion being on some kind of Green New Deal trip, or being in league with capitalism, or trying to save capitalism, or trying to work within we're gonna switch to electric cars, and that's not. They all understand. And Roger Hallam definitely understands that we're not in a good place, and that we're likely not to make it too much longer. He understands this. And obviously he understands global dimming. He talks about global dimming. He talks about some very obvious scientific facts that should lead you to conclude that, not only is climate change real, but it is progressing way faster than anybody would like to admit. Most certainly, the governments of the world would not like to admit this. The IPCC would not like to admit this. A lot of the more conservative scientists would not like to admit this, but the evidence is growing, and the evidence is already there that we're already feeling the effects of climate change in a bad way. We're already in the sixth mass extinction. The inspiring part of this video is he talks about direct action and peaceful resistance. Cites some good examples of times in recent history when things have changed very, very quickly because of direct action and peaceful resistance. Gandhi in India, MLK. He cites a few other examples, also the example of XR themselves, where, he basically points out that, you could spend years and decades, trying to work within the system, or you could disrupt the system and get change very, very quickly. The people in power want to stay in power, and they're willing to do all kinds of things, especially lie to you. And we already know this. Lie to you in order to keep the paradigm going, in order to keep everything status quo. And that's why they're putting people like Joe Biden up for nomination for office. That's why, there's so much outrage about Trump, but there's pretty much tacit approval for everything that he does, right? There's, the Democrats wail and howl sometimes, but a lot of the times they just roll on over and they're like, yeah, whatever you want to do, Trump. And we're going to need to have some form of direct action, I think, in the United States if we're really going to change things. Not just in the face of climate change, but in the face of Trump, the Trump administration, in the face of being able to have some kind of fair election in 2020. I really think that some people should start organizing around that now before the primaries. I mean, I know we have 20, 30, 40, 50 people running for president on the Democratic side, but the problem is that if we run into the same kind of shenanigans that we did in 2016, we're not even going to be able to elect somebody who is going to have any chance to turn the tide politically. Bernie Sanders is obviously the most popular presidential candidate right now. He's one of the most popular politicians in the United States right now. He should absolutely get the nomination. He should absolutely, or at least be given a fair chance at getting the nomination. And it looks like they're already, the media is already trying to circumvent his progress, and they're trying to tell you that, he's slipping or he's in third place, and that's totally not true. Also, check out his interview with Joe Rogan. Very good interview. Joe Rogan has had some Cornel West and Bernie Sanders on lately, some pretty good people. So suggest that you check out those videos as well. I'm going to link this video below, and you guys can check that out. So I'm going to finish this video with a couple of comments. This is from Marty McCorkle, really great comment. The hottest July since Eden simply means that as a nation we need to resist the temptation to abandon American values by using science, reason, and logic. If people start noticing climate change wins. We need to roll up our sleeves as Americans and more actively sit on our hands and ignore climate change. Most people are doing a swell job of being oblivious already, but climate change may still win if the public gets wind of the stew they are in. If George Washington was going hungry from climate change as Mount Vernon cooked like a fried egg, he would ignore climate change like a real patriot. And eventually climate change would feel awkward and unrecognized and go away in embarrassment. George Washington was a great American, would never have recognized climate change even if he were dying from it, and would have sipped his last glass of warmish water with a Trump straw. Just say no to climate change, yes to blissful ignorance, and when the situation unravels, go postal. It's the American thing to do, and with enough guns to arm every man, woman, and baby, avoid babies. They get grumpy when civilization goes south. Which reminds me that the Going South channel suggests combining abrupt climate change and the Green New Deal to make the Abrupt Green New Deal, which is the program we are pursuing already. So no need for congressional approval or corporate lobbyists. We've emitted enough greenhouse gases to put ourselves on the wrong side of a meat pie, namely the inside, and the Abrupt Green New Deal will solve most of our problems because it aggressively reduces the tons of humans, hence reducing human problems. It's the old no head, no headache principle that the French aristocrats became familiar with during the Reign of Terror. Not that guillotines will come into play, just food and water will become much sought after collector's items. Try not to notice, though, or climate change will win. And who knows, maybe climate change will change back, like Trump suggests, the way a bridge collapses, then sometimes uncollapses and becomes a functional bridge again. That happens, right? A record-breaking July is part of the clickety-clackety climb up the climate change roller coaster. You've seen nothing yet, and sorry, but there's no getting off the ride now, so please keep your hands and arms inside the climate change disaster until you have come to a complete stop in a few million years. Enjoy the ride. Really enjoyed that comment from Marty McCorkle. Thank you. And I know other people did as well. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.